Hi, welcome to the Shepherd Podcast. I'm your host, I'm Pastor Chris. Thank you for joining me today. The podcast is a way to acquaint you with some of the people here at Shepherd of the Hills in our church, school, and childcare. A lot of great people, a lot of people up front as well as behind the scenes who are doing important work for God's kingdom. And today I'd like to introduce you to Jessica Eggold. She oversees our school accounts, and so all of the parents in our school will interact with her. She has been a part of the ministry here for 5 years. She has a couple bachelor's degrees, recently got a master's degree in teaching. And so a lot of gifts and experiences that she brings to the table. And today I'm very pleased to welcome Jessica Eggold. Jessica, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So why don't you tell us a little more about what you do, school accounts. How do you spend your time?
I spend a lot of time making sure everybody's billing is correct. I pay the school bills, I receive funding and all that kind of stuff, but I also in the morning do some teaching, so I kind of do a dual role, maybe
Right.
a tri-role with coaching and everything, so I'm here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah, you sure are. You wear a lot of different hats, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Now, originally you were a teacher here. How did you end up in the school accounts role? I mean, why was that an interest for you versus being in the classroom all the time? How did that develop?
So Miss Gary approached me, what was it, a year and a half, 2 years ago? I don't remember, but Kay was getting ready to retire. Right. And so knowing that I have a math background and all of that kind of stuff and an interest in numbers, Miss Gary just approached me with the idea of taking on Kay's role. And I said, sure, I'll do whatever we need help with. So that's how I ended up with this job.
You're a team player.
Always.
Absolutely. You're wearing a shirt that says Shepherd Soccer. You are a team player.
Yes.
And you're a great part of the team. So tell me about what you're doing now, and then I want to talk a little more about teaching, but what you're doing now. What are the greatest joys in what you do in the accounts?
So I get to kind of see everything that's going on. I see pretty much every student on campus. I get to meet the parents, and I get to help people out, and it's just fun, semi-stressful but relaxing environment, and I just get to, I'm a helper, and so I like to help in any way I can, so whether it's the accounts or just helping anywhere in the school, so.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. You get to know everybody, don't you?
Yes, I sure do. Yeah. Whether it's just a name on the paper or I see them in person, I know a lot of names because I see them and deal with them on the account side, but then I also get to see who they are and which child the parent is attached to and all that kind of stuff.
Right. You ever meet anybody and say, I didn't think you'd look that way?
Yes, when I hear their voice on the phone, then I see them in person. I was like, oh, but I get that too because I sound like a little kid, but I'm really in my 30s, so it's nothing new.
Yeah, sorry, that was kind of a silly question for me to ask. What are some of the biggest challenges in your role? What's the most stressful part of the job?
Finding the time to get everything done.
Yeah.
Because I have such a limited time to do things, so it's prioritizing and making sure that certain things are done for sure every week or every month, but prioritizing between teaching and doing the school accounts. And the toughest part is being in my office and trying to get back to parents sometimes is because I'm running all over the place, so that's one of the big challenges.
Yeah, I definitely see you coming and going a lot throughout the day.
I sure do.
Yeah. So on top of the accounts, you are doing some teaching. What are you teaching now?
So I teach 6th grade religion, but I also help with 4th grade as like a transition for the teachers to watch them, just independent reading time for them as they get ready for the next class. But then I also assist Coach Raish on 3rd, 4th, 5th PE 1 day a week. Okay. So I kind of do lots.
So accounts, teaching religion, PE, and other duties as assigned.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
All kinds of things you do. Now, teaching's really in your blood, isn't it?
It sure is.
Can you tell us about your family's background in teaching?
So both my parents are educators. My mom has been teaching for about 30 or more years. She took a couple years off to do another job, but she's been around 30 years of teaching, but she's principal now. So she does a dual role of principal and teaching.
Okay.
And then my dad, he's a principal as well. He used to be an athletic director at my high school, and so he's been in and out of the school. My grandpa used to be a teacher. I've had an aunt that was a teacher, and my grandma was a school secretary. So we were in schools all the time. So
yeah. And some people may know your parents. Your dad, yes. Stephen, was a principal at Lutheran High for several years, and then your mom, Michelle, was a teacher here.
Yes.
So you have very much followed in their footsteps.
Yes, I visited my mom all the time when I was in college. So some of the siblings are now in school here that my mom had, the older ones.
Oh, really?
And so I'm kind of seeing the second, third sibling sometimes for some of the families.
Yeah. Now, from observing your parents, did you say, I want to get into Lutheran education as well?
At first, no.
Yeah?
So I am a very shy person. So I didn't want to get up in front of people and talk. Yeah. That was not my thing. Yeah. So when I first went to school, I was like, no teaching. I don't want to follow my parents. I want my own thing. And so I went and got my sports administration degree because I wanted to coach and be an athletic director eventually. So teaching was not anywhere in my realm of wanting to do. And then after talking to some people, they encouraged me to get my teaching certification so that I can be more in the school setting for coaching and everything. And then as I got into it, I've enjoyed it a lot.
Yeah. What do you enjoy the most about teaching?
Just seeing the kids every day and the smiles and helping them when they have hard times and just being goofy with them and having fun.
Yeah. That's a big part of teaching, isn't it, having fun with the kids?
I mean, if you don't have fun, they won't have fun, and most people learn when they're having fun.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, you don't want it to just be something they have to do because they have to do it, and then they don't really want to be there, so you try to liven it up. What are some things you do to have fun with the kids?
So I like to do activities. I'm not a person that can learn by just hearing or seeing. I have to learn by doing. Yeah. And so I have my students do activities to learn the basics of things. And like recently we're doing words, the power of words in religion class. And so we're doing an activity with a person that they colored, and we're going to show what words can do to affect others and themselves, and just kind of lots of hands-on activities. Yeah,
that's a very practical lesson.
Yes.
Yeah. And you said you're working with, is it 6th grade?
6th grade.
Yeah, so junior high years, that I mean, it's important all the time, our words, but those years especially, those are some really important lessons.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you mentioned there's the coaching and the sports end of things. That's another interest of yours, so you get to scratch that itch with PE, and you've done some coaching. We've had to scale back on some of our sports during the pandemic, so hadn't done quite as much of that lately. But what were some of the things that you had in mind when you were considering careers? You said you wanted to do some coaching at that time. So what did you envision for yourself at that point in time?
So I've thought about college coaching, but I know there's a whole bunch of paperwork and behind the scenes office stuff that I didn't really want to do. I wanted to do just the coaching. Yeah. So that's where high school and middle school kind of came into play, and I coached high school up in St. Louis for a few years, and then came down here and coached some middle school sports, but I just like teaching life lessons through coaching. So that's kind of how I view the coaching style that I have. So
yeah, so I hear you saying you're not just interested in winning a game or teaching skills in a sport, but it's really more about shaping the person.
Yeah, I always tell them if you get to the point where you're not having fun anymore, it's not worth it. So I got to that point with one of my sports, and then after a few years of a break from that sport, I started enjoying it again. So yeah,
that's important. If you're playing sports and not having fun, then what's the point?
It's not worth it. It's hard work, so you gotta have fun.
Yeah. And what kind of sports do you like to coach?
Softball, basketball, soccer. Those were my 3 main ones.
Okay. Yeah, I know you worked with at least one of my children in a camp, in soccer camp, so that was a lot of fun. Yeah. So your parents are up in the St. Louis area now, right?
Yes.
That's where you're from?
That's where I'm originally from.
Yes. I'm curious about the difference in Lutheran education in St. Louis versus down here in Texas. There's a whole lot of Lutherans up in St. Louis.
There's a ton.
Yeah. Do things tend to look different in a Lutheran school in St. Louis compared to San Antonio? Is it basically the same, or how would you compare the two?
I'd say it's essentially the same. Just in St. Louis, you have a lot more options for schools. Okay. Whereas here we have 2 or 3 grade schools and 1 high school.
Right.
Whereas in St. Louis, you've got like hundreds of schools that they can choose from.
Hundreds of Lutheran schools?
Yeah.
Literally?
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Between high school and grade school, it's a lot, because that's where the International Center is,
right.
where the center of the LCMS. So they've got a whole bunch of Lutheran culture up there.
Yeah, there's a lot of Lutheran schools up in the St. Louis area. Yeah. Now, both your parents principals now?
Yes.
Okay.
2 different schools, principals, 2 different counties, but it's fun hearing all the stories of what they do and hear how they. So my dad was the high school principal here, but he's a grade school principal in St. Louis, so it's quite interesting to see how he interacts with the younger kids.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a different ball game.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, some things are the same, but some things are different.
Yes.
Yeah. Being here at Shepherd, what are your favorite things about Shepherd of the Hills?
It's kind of like a family, because basically everybody knows everybody. Mm-hmm. So when you walk in the door, it's like walking into your family reunion almost, because you get to say hi to everybody and see everybody. So it's, if you're new, you feel welcomed, because we're all like, hey, come on in, let's have some fun. So.
Yeah, I hear that from a lot of people, that it has very much a family environment. What do you think are some of the keys to creating an environment like that?
I think it's having staff that enjoy the mission of spreading the word and teaching the children, and just wanting the best for all the students that walk through our door. Yep.
Yeah, and I hear that from you too. You're very focused on, developing the students and to the people that God wants them to be. So that's really at the heart of it, isn't it? It's caring about the people that God entrusts to us.
The whole person.
Not
just the education.
Sure. Well, and in terms of sports and the things you're involved in, you hit on all those different sides of the equation. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little more about you, just on a personal level. How many dogs do you have?
Do we want to get technical, or do we want to talk about the one that lives with me right now?
Tell me more.
So I technically have 3 dogs. Okay. One of them's blind, so she lives with my grandpa, and she was actually born in Venezuela. So my grandparents lived in Venezuela for 10 years doing mission work for the LCMS.
Your mom's parents or your dad's parents?
My mom's parents.
Your mom's parents, okay.
So they brought a dog back for me when they were done, and so it was my graduation present for college. Yeah. And so once I moved in with my brother, and they had 4 dogs, 3 cats, and 2 kids, it was like too much for my dog. So my grandpa took my dog in, and then months later she became blind. So it was best for her to stay out there, because he's home all the time. Yeah. So then I have another dog that is just kind of scared of the world. And so when I moved into an apartment, it was just too stressful for her. So he lives out in the country, And so she's roaming around in his yard and having a blast.
Oh, good.
And then I have my 1.5-year-old dog at my apartment with me, and she's just a bundle of energy.
Even at 1.5, not little puppy anymore.
No, she's a good 50 pounds of muscle.
Yeah.
And as loud as can be and as playful as can be, and still does puppy things, but she's a cuddler.
Yeah. Have you had her since a little puppy?
I've had her since 4 months, essentially one day after she was found on the streets. So 2 of my dogs, the 2 most recent dogs, are rescues from the streets. So yeah, they're fun.
They're fun. So what do you do to help your doggy get the energy out?
Try to have play dates with dogs that want to run around. She loves to play with any dog that will play with her. I take her to doggy daycare every once in a while.
Yeah.
Or just on walks and runs and anything that will get it out.
Yes. I'm sure she's happy to see you when you get home.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. What else do you do for fun?
Oh, I like to bike ride. I finally got my bike back from my brother's house. So I'll bike about 10 miles every time I go bike riding. Anything outdoors, hiking, walking, on trails, hanging out with friends, doing sports. I was in a soccer league for a while. But seeing my grandpa, he lives a couple hours away, so I go visit him about once or twice a month.
Okay.
So.
Oh, that's nice you're able to go see him. Knowing that, your parents are far away, to be able to have those close connections with your grandpa is great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of your family, you had an uncle or a great uncle who passed away recently who was pretty well known.
Yes, a great uncle.
Right, Walter Wangren.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little more about him? What was he known for?
So he was a pretty popular Christian author. He's done children's books, and he's done books like Paul. Paul's a big, thick book of his. Book of the Dun Cow is his probably most popular book.
What's it called again?
Book of the Dun Cow.
What's that about?
I haven't read it yet, to be honest. I'm not much of a reader.
Yeah.
But I've read some of his children's books.
Okay.
And all that kind of stuff. And I actually got one of his children's books from my grandma when she moved out of her house. And there was a personal letter to my grandma in that book.
Oh, wow.
And the book was based off of my grandma and her siblings, because he married my grandma's sister.
Okay.
So that's how we're related.
Okay. Okay.
And he's done some radio stuff. He's been a teacher at Valparaiso. So he was out in Indiana. So he's pretty cool.
Yeah, maybe some people have heard that name. I bet a number of people have. Walter Wangren. He recently passed away. So I'm very sorry about that loss for your family. Yeah. I want to ask you also, just on a personal level, about your own faith and how your faith has helped you in your life.
It's been one of those things where when hard times happen, I can always fall back on the Word. And I struggle a little bit with depression, so it's been very helpful to go back and read the Word and the encouragement. Haven't always been a very strong Christian. I grew up going to church because that's what you did.
Okay.
So it was about high school when I started going on mission trips and really seeing and living the faith. And then in college, going out of the country to go play softball and teach others about my faith. And it's when you do that, you have to have a personal experience, because especially going to places like China and Thailand, if it's not personal to you, they don't really care, because they're all about what are you about. So it's been, and teaching religion has very much helped me get back into the Word and really learn it, and because I have to teach it, and it's hard to teach something you don't believe.
That's
so,
right. That'd be fake, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And students can tell when you're faking. So if it's not sincere, it's hard. I mean, there's periods of time where faith is tested, and sometimes you just want to be like, I give up. Mm-hmm. But one step at a time. That's what I always tell myself, one step at a time.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice to remember whenever we feel overwhelmed. I think that's when we usually feel like giving up, when we feel overwhelmed, like this is more than I can handle. We don't have to handle it all at one time. One step at a time. God will help you. Yeah. You talked about mission trips. Did you say China, Thailand?
That's two of the places I've been.
Other places?
I've been to Venezuela a couple of times to see my grandparents.
Oh, cool.
I've been to Myanmar or Burma, however you remember it.
Yeah.
And I've been to Haiti.
Yeah,
a couple
I remember
times,
that. Yeah.
Through Shepherd.
Yeah.
I think that's all.
That's a variety of places.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us did you have a favorite out of all those trips? One that really stands out?
I would say, honestly, China. I was there for a month.
A month?
And so we did some work with the softball teams. We took a team over and competed against some of the teams in the provinces there. Uh-huh. Some of them were even in the Olympics. So just kind of getting to know them and spending time with them. But it wasn't just softball. We ended up spending time with some of the wrestlers. And we learned some wrestling while we were there.
All right.
Which was quite interesting. And just hanging out and having fun and worshiping in the hotels.
Uh-huh.
Learning a little bit about life there.
Uh-huh.
So
mission trip, was there a part where you were sharing your faith with the people in China? I mean, you were playing sports with them.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little more about the faith component of that trip?
So China's a closed country, so we kind of had to be careful. So we would wear bracelets that had different colors on it.
Okay.
And so we would, if they would ask us about the bracelet we were wearing, then we would share, because each color meant something different about our faith. And so we would prepare like our testimony about like how God has helped us in life, or what we know about God. But then there were times where you would think that we wouldn't be able to share our faith because it's a closed country and they're very strict on it.
Okay.
But somehow God opened doors to like places we wouldn't have even thought of. That's like, hey, can you come share it to us, or can we go hang out and share with you guys? So it didn't feel like we were like under the radar.
Really?
So.
Sounds like it was somewhat organic.
Yes, very much so.
You know, I mean, you were around the people, and as opportunities opened up, then you took advantage of those opportunities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because if you forced it on them, they were going to be like, we don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah. Isn't that how life is in America too, to be honest?
Oh, yes.
I mean, I think that applies to any of us who would like to share our faith. Everyone wants to be an independent human being. Mm-hmm. No one wants to be forced to think anything or believe anything.
Yeah. Don't tell me what to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's not just one country, but I think that's human beings in general, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You said you wore different colored armbands that had to do with your faith. Can you say more about that?
It's been a while, so I don't remember all the colors, but like there was green, so that was growing. Like, how did we grow? How did God grow in us? There was white, which was purity, and talking about how God saves us, and there was red, so the sin of the world and the blood on the cross. Mm-hmm. So there were different symbolisms to the colors.
Yeah, that's really cool. So you were there for a month.
Yes.
Let's see some of the other places you were. Were you there for any length like that, close to a month, or were they all shorter trips?
The other ones were a week to 2 weeks.
Week to 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say to people who may be considering going on a mission trip, if they asked you for some advice or guidance as they were contemplating it, what would you share?
Do it.
Do it?
Yeah. I mean, for some, it's like one in a lifetime chance, and that you need to take the opportunity when it comes your way.
Right.
It's not for everybody. Some don't like to go overseas, but you can still do mission trips in the United States. You don't have to go overseas. I just like to travel.
Yeah.
So anytime I got a chance to go overseas, I was like, all right, sign me up.
Yeah.
So, I mean, take every chance that you have to go see the world and see other cultures, because it'll teach you more than you know, because they live very differently than us.
Yeah.
So it opened my eyes to a lot of things that we're very spoiled over here.
Okay. So
just learning to enjoy the things we have and don't take anything for granted.
Mm-hmm. I imagine that Haiti was one of those places that made you appreciate what we have here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah. And I imagine you probably feel a special connection with the people in the places where you visited.
Yeah, sometimes I still talk to some of the ones that I've seen overseas. So great thing about social media is you can talk to people on the other side of the world.
Oh, that is really great. Wow. Yeah, and I can see how you would grow a lot through those experiences. Is there a place you would like to go on your next mission trip? Once COVID allows us to do things?
I want to go to Europe. I have not been to Europe yet.
Yeah?
I've been to South America. I've been to other Asian cultures, but I've never been to Europe, and that's one place I want to go.
A particular place in Europe?
No, I've talked to friends about trying to backpack through Europe.
That'd be cool.
Hasn't happened yet, but maybe one day.
Yeah. A previous podcast episode, I talked to Gary Larson, who's done this, basically a walk across Spain, and it's a pilgrimage that a lot of people do, so that was very intriguing to backpack across a European country.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. So I may have to tell you more about that one. But, well, we'll see what the next one is. But I admire your heart for missions and traveling and wanting to grow and serve in those ways.
Thanks. That's fun.
Maybe you can organize a mission trip for us sometime.
Oh, I don't know about organizing, but I will help.
You will help? You're a helper, I learned. You're a helper.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all the ways you help around here at the school and the many hats you wear. I know it makes a great difference.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks for having this conversation today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to get to know you better, and I know our audience got to learn some things about you that, especially the parents as they interact with you, now they'll know a little bit more about who they're talking to. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for watching the Shepherd Podcast today. I know you enjoyed getting to know Jessica better, and I encourage you to join us next time as we continue to bring you more of the great people here at Shepherd of the Hills. Until then, God's blessings to you. May He keep you healthy and safe and strong. And one step at a time, we learned from Jessica in all the things, and God will lead us forward. The peace of the Lord be with you today.